back with us on the SportsMax Zone. We start with football. The draw for the 2021 Concacaf Gold Cup, to be played from July 10 to August 1, 2021, was held Monday night in Florida. The tournament, originally scheduled for July 2 to 25, will see 16 teams competing in 4 groups in the round-robin stage. Group A, Mexico, El Salvador, Curacao, and El Salvador, Curacao, and the winner of the preliminary round match 9. Group B, USA, Canada, Martinique, preliminary 7 winner. Costa Rica, Jamaica, Suriname, winner preliminary round 8 to accompany them. And Group D is the only one completed: Honduras, Panama, Grenada, and the strange team, the guest team, Qatar. Of course, the 2022 World Cup will be played in Qatar, and CONCACAF building bridges with Qatar by inviting them to play in this tournament. Now, a preliminary round of games from which 3 teams will qualify for the group stage of the Gold Cup to fill out the 3 spaces in the groups. That preliminary round competition is to be played from May 1 to 10 in Guatemala City. Speaking after the draw, the former Grenada international and director of development at CONCACAF, the former Wigan Athletics striker, Jason Roberts, said the Gold Cup will help lift the profile of the sport.
I really feel proud that we have continued to evolve and work with this Gold Cup and try to make it the best that it can be, with a new prelim round and of course getting more teams access to this competition. When you look at the performances of the likes of Panama and Curacao, you continue to see the development of football in our region. So that makes this an even more proud moment on our first ever CONCACAF Gold Cup draw. I think at the moment, like our president Victor Montaliani said, this is an opportunity for people to be talking about football, talking about the Gold Cup in 2021, and everyone to get excited about some of the matchups and some of the groups drawn. So this was a real opportunity in these very difficult times for people to focus again.
Yeah, that's Jason Roberts speaking about the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Now the question is, we'll talk about TNT in short order, but the Gold Cup in the past, Mexico are 11-time winners, although you'll see 8 in some history books. That's because it's been 8 that they've won since the tournament was rebranded as the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Before that, it was the CONCACAF Championship. So they have 11 to their name overall, 8 under the Gold Cup banner. The USA, the next most successful team, with 6, and then you have a clutch of teams who've won it 1 time. Nobody from the Caribbean has won the Gold Cup yet. We've had some near misses. TNT went close in 1973. Jamaica, of course, lost 2 finals in recent time, but the Caribbean has yet to climb that mountain. Do we see this Jamaica side, Lance? Do we see Trinidad and Tobago, if they get the green light by December 18, Mariah? Do we see either of those 2 teams, Mr. Whitaker, being strong enough to give the Caribbean their first Gold Cup winner?
Very hard to say. We think that the gap has closed between the Caribbean and a lot of the top CONCACAF teams in the recent decade, but it's going to be hard for these teams to, unseat teams like the USA and Mexico. I'm just pleased that so many teams from the Caribbean are having an opportunity already in the 12, already in the main draw. You have teams like, Suriname and Curacao, Haiti is a long-standing Caribbean
The point I was making is this. The reason I mentioned Haiti is because I don't want anybody to think that we're forgetting Haiti. Haiti have been, for many editions of this tournament, the Caribbean team best placed to lift the title. That's why I mentioned them just now.
Yeah, and we can't forget that Curacao are the current Caribbean champions.
Yes.
I think they have risen a lot in the past 5 or 6 years, and they are a strong force. And I'm hopeful that a lot of the Caribbean teams will get into the final 16 and not just the regulars like TNT, Jamaica, and Haiti.
What I will say, Lance and George, is that in order for our teams to compete, they have a lot of work to do. We've seen the state of Trinidad, of course, so I don't even know what's happening with our players there, if they even have any zeal to practice and whatnot. Jamaica as well, we know their flaws so far. It has been all over the media, and of course, they have a lot of work too. Mexico and the US, Group A and Group B, George and Lance, I think will be the ones, to advance and of course to put up a fight, because we see the US having an advantage, especially because they are the host for this tournament, and they won't want a repeat of the finals last year when Mexico were able to overcome them. What I will say is, though, I will hope that the COVID-19 pandemic will create some sort of level playing field between the teams, because, no crowd support, and we know how the US are when it comes to football and whatnot. So I'm hoping the COVID-19 pandemic creates a level playing field, but I still know that our Caribbean teams have a lot of work to do to even match up to these teams.
Let me get that graphic again of the road to the final, because I want to point something out, which may be good for Caribbean teams. If you notice, Mexico and the US are on for a confrontation early in the tournament, because they're on the same, well, you can call it the same side of the draw, if you may. Mexico, El Salvador, Curacao, and the qualifier, then USA, Canada, Martinique, and a qualifier. So they are at the top part. They'll meet before the final. So you can't have a USA-Mexico semi-final or a USA-Mexico, well, you can have a USA-Mexico semi-final, but you can't have a USA-Mexico final. So they've eliminated that.
That's a sigh of relief.
Well, that's good.
Wow.
And so the Caribbean teams may say, well, all right, this is a bit better for us to navigate in terms of getting there. But I think, I don't know, I just think it's the cycle for the Caribbean teams, those two finals, based on the run of play, Lance, Mariah, Jamaica should have won both those finals that they lost. I'm sorry.
Both?
Yes. Yes. Because I kept saying, I said before, long before, the Mexico team, the worst Mexico team I've seen since I've been alive, in the same way I'm seeing the worst TNT team now in my lifetime. The USA team were rubbish. But no, the USA have some real hot steppers playing across Europe. Christian Pulisic is out of this world, and there are several others who are not below his standards. So you can forget the USA being weak from now. Mexico are retooling, but they don't have the hallmarks of the great Mexico teams, which is the deadliest finisher and the outstanding midfielders and the superb defenders that have characterized Mexican teams of the past. So the point I'm making is this: the Caribbean teams still have a good chance, but when the big two were at their weakest, we didn't capitalize, and the law of averages may suggest that we'll have to wait a longer cycle from now to get those big teams weak enough for us to exploit.
One of the things we have to look at too is, because of the nature of the Concacaf Gold Cup and how high profile the tournament is, a lot of these countries that are European dependencies, the Dutch teams, the French teams, like Martinique, Guadeloupe and French Guiana, will be using a lot of their players who are on the European continent playing football, and these teams have become a lot stronger in recent years. Curacao, for instance, now George Roos Hiddink is now their coach, a former national Dutch coach, is now coaching Curacao, and I think he'll use his influence to get a lot of the top players in the Dutch league who qualify to play for Curacao to play for them, and sort of reinforce the fact that they're already Caribbean champions and want to make a bold bid in the Concacaf Gold Cup.
Definitely, Lance. We can't underestimate any of the teams, because while our Caribbean teams, some of them may have gotten weaker, a lot of these other teams may have been silent, but they've been working and strengthening behind the scenes.
The teams you mentioned, Lance, I expect them to do well, and for sure, especially Curacao. You know I'm a big fan of their football. But the reason the Mexicos and the USAs of this region always play well in the Gold Cup is because they have superior finishers. So you can have a strong Curacao team, but they won't have a finisher of the kind that you'll find in the colors of the USA or the colors of Mexico. But look, I join you in saying that I'm happy to see so many Caribbean teams and so many able and capable of doing great things in this tournament. Moving on now, despite their suspension by FIFA, Trinidad and Tobago were involved in the draw and will play Montserrat for a Gold Cup group stage berth. Concacaf says TNT will be replaced by Antigua and Barbuda if they fail to have the FIFA ban lifted by December 18 this year. Now, in case you were under a rock and are now wondering why TNT was banned by FIFA, Donald Oliver has been gracious enough to explain.
Who knew winning the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association election in November of last year would instigate this firestorm on one William Wallace? Back then he had his own agenda.
It's a whole rebuilding process. We have to rebuild. We have to be starting to think about 2026, definitely. So it's rebuilding. We have to start with our young players. We have to put those programs in place so that our young players can come through well. That is where we start. When we started playing good football was when the fans would come out. But in addition to that, our style of governance would also help in that way, because we want to be open. We want to reach out to Trinidad and Tobago in all aspects. So I think that also would help in going for us to bring fans back to the game.
The issue began to unfold on March 17 when FIFA General Secretary General Fatma Samura sent a letter to the TTFA General Secretary Ramesh Ramdan outlining their concerns about the financial status of the TTFA. FIFA said they found the overall condition of financial management and financial governance extremely low or non-existent at the TTFA. FIFA also said there is a lack of documented policies and procedures, financial planning and management of statutory liabilities, adding that there was no short or long-term plan to address the urgent situation. Going further, FIFA expressed the concern that given the situation along with the US $5.5 million debt, the TTFA faced a very real risk of insolvency. By this time, FIFA was holding back its annual subvention of $1.2 million to the new administration. The new TTFA body had cited cost overruns over the years and lack of oversight by the previous administration led by David John Williams on the Home of Football project. In a strongly worded letter addressed to FIFA Member Association Chief Veron Mosengo Omba, the GenSec had said it was ironic that in 2020 it was a source of financial distress. After that accusation of suspicious timing, FIFA removed the TTFA board and implemented a normalization committee led by businessman Robert Haddad. The committee, which would last for no more than 24 months, had been mandated to run the daily affairs of the TTFA, establish a debt repayment plan that is implementable by the TTFA, as well as review and amend the TTFA statutes and ensure their compliance with FIFA statutes. The committee was also set to organize and conduct elections of a new TTFA executive for a 4-year term. Wallace contended the FIFA's decision was unconstitutional and resorted to having the Court of Arbitration for Sport settle the disputes. The TTFA appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS. The lawyers for ousted TTFA executive had proposed that Mark Howell, a solicitor from Manchester, England, be the sole arbitrator in their case against FIFA. FIFA objected and said they favoured a 3-man panel to hear the dispute, a proposal which the court agreed with. Additionally, the Wallace-led association had complained that CAS appeared to be taking sides, pointing out that the TTFA was asked to pay all the fees for the arbitration in contravention of the court's regulations, which require that the parties split the cost, which FIFA refused to do. The court's acceptance of FIFA's request for the case to be heard by 3 arbitrators also tripled the costs associated with the appeal. So the TTFA team withdrew the application from CAS, and on May 18, lawyers for the Wallace executive had filed an application in the Trinidad and Tobago High Court seeking a permanent injunction to prevent FIFA from interfering. The High Court ruled that the dispute could be heard in the local jurisdiction instead of the Switzerland-based Court of Arbitration for Sport, as contended by FIFA. Now, FIFA filed an appeal that was dismissed by the High Court, and FIFA believed the judge made several errors in arriving at her decision. And so, with increasing frustration at being unable to have the dispute resolved, FIFA decided to flex their own muscles. They insisted that the only recognized path to resolve the ongoing dispute is CAS, and requested the TTFA to ask the former leadership for an immediate withdrawal of the claim at the Trinidad and Tobago High Court by September 16, 2020 at the latest. It said that failure to comply with this directive could result in the commencement of suspension proceedings via the relevant FIFA bodies. This is in accordance with the FIFA statutes, which expressly contains the prohibition of recourse to ordinary courts of law unless specifically provided for. A further deadline of September 23 was also missed by the TTFA. And so, this is where we are. Wallace also had to contend with the brewing scandal under his watch. SportsMax investigations revealed discrepancies in the contracts of national men's team coach Terry Fennick and the GenSec Ramdan. Both were offered 2-year contracts by the president instead of 1-year deals as approved by the board. The campaign group United TTFA, who backed Wallace in the elections, said the new president no longer had the moral high ground.
Thank you very much, Donald. So we hope that you are now up to speed and you can understand why December 18 is the day by which time if TNT fails to normalize their situation with FIFA, pun intended, they will not play in the Concacaf Gold Cup. That space will automatically go to Antigua and Barbuda. So Mariah asked a question of Ireland if Antigua and Barbuda should begin training. The Better boys,
Yes.
they better get started training.
I would think so.
Yep.
And what about our Trini team? Like, do you think they would have the zeal to train? First of all, we've been trending because, a lot of coaches haven't been paid. They're still trying to figure out who should pay them. So what really happens to the TNT Soca Warriors?
Well, that's a question for the normalization committee. They're in charge of football now, aren't they?
I'll reach out.
Yep, it's a question to ask.
And Coach Terry Fennick.
And Coach Terry Fennick. All right, back with more of the SportsMax Zone after this break.